But we're glad to see you here. Obviously, this election is very, very important, not only in our nation's life, but right down to our local level. But I felt that even though I rarely speak, I wanted to say something. That given the divisive and inflammatory political climate, even longtime friends often now can no longer discuss political issues without becoming apoplectic. That's certainly the case with a few of my good friends. We hope the Friday Forum remains exempt from such storm and stress. The Friday Forum was formed over 3 years ago in an effort to widen the circles of civil discourse throughout our entire community. To that end, individuals of diverse backgrounds have always been welcome to our panels, with liberals among us always listening to others with courtesy and generally open minds. This capacity for open inquiry is especially necessary during this period when some candidates choose to deliberately create chaos, not only within their parties, but at almost every level of social interaction. In Marion County, the candidates for sheriff, school board, and county commission attract the most attention. Rightly so. As Commissioner Stan McLean said at one of these forums a while back, local officials have the most immediate impact on our lives via taxes, roads, schools, and public safety. But those we send to Tallahassee and to the U.S. Congress also count. Despite being the fifth largest county in Florida, a county the size of Rhode Island with 250,000 people, which adds up to 1% of the total population of the United States, Marion County has little influence thanks to gerrymandering and the closed primary system, a system I really don't fully understand. The system allows write-in candidates to eliminate opposition party voters from participating in the process, with a result that a minuscule number of voters determine the candidates. So demagogues who say the system is rigged are not always wrong, but they don't point out that it is often rigged in their favor, preferring to inflame public passions and incite civil unrest by rewriting history and discarding any call to reason and civic responsibility. Instead, with a rabid enthusiasm of mass media, truthiness reigns and reality recedes into Orwellian mind control. Platforms notwithstanding, office holders are impotent unless they cooperate. Will your candidate continue the gridlock of do-nothings and know-nothings who value party over country, or will they recognize the valid concerns of others and truly seek the good of all Americans by recognizing that compromise is not a dirty word? Without it, our democracy is lost. But rather than rambling on, I defer to someone far more knowledgeable than I about electoral procedures and the ongoing evolution of both the process and our ability to affect its implementation. I give you Dr. Joyce Blake, retired educator and leader of the local Democrats.
I have to tell you, I'm inspired by Ken, and I think those that will look into him will be also. Ken's been a leader all his life, whether it's becoming an Eagle Scout at a young age, or doing what I think we all owe a great deal of gratitude is voluntarily joining to go to Vietnam and becoming a combat veteran. Ken has always led. Became a captain at the age of 22, which is very unusual in the Army. After that, he went to school. He understands about student loans because he had to get student loans. Got a master's in business along with his PhD. And he took that and put it to work, and he created hundreds of jobs in Gainesville. Not only by working with government to redevelop downtown in Gainesville, and anybody gets a chance to go down there, it's a beautiful, thriving place. It's because Ken McGurn not only put his money, but he worked with people, Republicans and Democrats alike. He gets things done. Ken decided to jump into this race because, you know what, Congress isn't getting things done. And his opponent, the contrast couldn't be greater. His opponent is a big reason, Ted Yoho is a big reason why things aren't getting done in Congress. He thinks it's an accomplishment to shut down government. He loves to talk about helping veterans, but when you shut down government and it costs us $20 billion, that's money that can go to veterans, or could go to education, or go to many things that we certainly need. Ken understands that. And he understands that Republicans aren't the enemy. There are partners in moving America forward. But it's important to have a tone where people can talk to one another. And it's important, I think, particularly at this time when we're witnessing such, that that tone is non-existent. Ken McGurn has that tone. And again, I want to emphasize the contrast couldn't be greater. He understands the importance of speaking with everyone and speaking with everybody and respecting where they come from. You know, I personally, just last month at the Republican convention, you know, it's an exciting time. Republicans and Democrats, you know, you get and you put your platforms together, but judgment matters. And when our representative right now, Ted Yoho, decides that it's a good use of his time to interview a little white supremacist radio host, I'm saying that's not what we want from our leaders. Ken McGurn understands that if we're going to have true leadership, that's going to be by working with people in an environment to get things done and focusing on the issues at hand. So I would ask you as we move forward, certainly we don't have a primary race, it's going to be a general election. Take a look, go to votemcgurn.com. Take a look at his resume, and you'll find out what I have, that it's impeccable. That Ken McGurn gets things done. He gets things done by working with people, working with the resources that are there, and he always accomplishes to move things forward. Thank you very much.
Ken, last time he introduced himself, said his opponent was Ted Yoho, and Tom has repeated that. I am in this race also. I'm registered as an independent. I'm on the ballot November 8th because there's no primary. I registered as an independent simply because it costs $3,500 less. I'm using my own money to get there because I'm betting on my grandchildren's future. I think I can help provide them with a better life. One way of hoping to do that, well, let's give the background for a moment. I'm a PhD in theoretical physics. I've been solving 35 years worth of problems for the Air Force and Army mainly, and I know how to solve problems. We've not run out of problems. The problems, in fact, that I've been thinking about the most urgently for the last 15 years have been exactly those that Bernie brought to the fore in this campaign season, which allowed me the opportunity to speak to those problems, those solutions publicly, as I'm doing now, because they are important to me. They are conservative solutions. They have been proven around the world and in states across the country. Free education, that originated, as far as I know, in the university system of California, which was in the 60s and 70s the greatest university system in the world. Then Ronald Reagan came along and thought of this cool idea of tuition. And student loans that you can't declare bankruptcy to get out of, because that would not help the banks. The principal problem is that everything our Congress does is to help corporations. And the reason for that, in my estimation, is that the corporations are paying more to them, funding them more than their salary, and they become dependent upon that. My platform is to not accept corporations, donors, corporate donors, not accept PAC money from corporations. I'll accept money from unions because unions are us. I call this the straight arrow program. The terminology comes from government contracting, where government contractors by statute are not allowed to accept anything from people who might contract through them. And I think the same ethical standards should apply to Congress. Now, with a Congress that's wholly dependent upon financing from corporations and from large donors, there's no way they're going to vote to have that as a law. So, I am pledging to form a straight arrow caucus of people that you can then decide, hey, that's the straight arrow guy, or that's not, and my time's up. But I'm not through.
My name's Dave Kohler, and I'm running for United States Congress here in Florida's District 11. A little brief history about me. 2013 was my first year ever in politics. I joined the political race and the political, whatever you want to call them. I joined them because our government was shut down. People ceased to get along and talk to one another. It became more important to stand firm on an ideology than it was to produce solutions that best served we the people. So this is why I actually got into running. Before that, and still currently, I have a local business here in Ocala. I'm a small business owner. I educate people with developmental disabilities. My job is to assist people in succeeding and providing them opportunities to achieve their goals in independence. It's pretty much, it sounds simple, but it's really actually quite difficult. Because what we have to do is we have to navigate the bureaucracies of Medicare, Social Security, the VA, housing departments, hospitals, and so forth. Every aspect of somebody's life to create an independent structure for them. And I have to tell you, in all honesty, I'm pretty good at it. I actually take the dysfunctional and make it functional. And I pride myself on this. Some of my opponents see problems, and they see no hope or no future, or they only see one path forward. When I see an obstacle, I see multiple avenues. I see an opportunity for us to be able to come together and actually produce a solution for all of us. I'm so tired of the American people at the end of every election being the losers. We don't win, Democrat or Republican, we don't win anymore. Now, I don't want to sound like the big T man that we don't win, but I'm not talking about Republican or Democrat. I'm talking about a stagnant Congress. I'm talking about a Congress that's more in tune to their party than their responsibility. So what I want to do is I want to bring that common sense, that accountability, that thinking that people are more important than the policy, and with that, we will get our country moving forward again. My name's Dave Kohler, and I'm running for the United States Congress. Thank you very much for having me.
A button, no TPP?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I listened to Obama's speech and he made a pretty good case for it. Can you tell me why you're so opposed?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, TPP is one of my favorite topics, and NAFTA and GATT before it, and the whole array of free trade agreements. These agreements have several characteristics in common. The first is that they are negotiated in secret by corporate representatives only, excluding all the representatives of labor. I think that exclusion and that secrecy, in particular that secrecy extends to secrecy from Congress, where Congress is not allowed except to go and read it in a private room and not even to take notes on what they've read. That secrecy should disqualify the treaty from consideration. When you do read it, thanks to people like WikiLeaks, whether you like them or not, that's the only way we're getting information about our own government these days. WikiLeaks revealed Chapter 11, ISDS, which gives corporations the right to calculate their profits
10 seconds.
and to sue municipalities, state, and the federal government if the environmental laws, etc., violate their estimate of profits that they're going to get.
Thank you.
Good authority that Apple,
I got it.
I've heard on good authority that Apple Computer employs 500,000 Chinese workers in China producing products that come to this country and elsewhere. I also heard that those products were made in this country by American workers. Instead of costing $300, it costs $750. We hear a lot from candidates, rightfully so, about bringing jobs back to America. How are we going to handle a situation like this?
Who's the question to?
Those ready for Congress.
The only one, well, let's get one person. Tom, you want to respond first, please?
Sure. Ken knows the importance of manufacturing here, but I think what Ken's going to bring to this is an attitude of how do you create those jobs with the resources you have. And it's going to be a combination of working with government and also providing them training along with incentives. So he will be rolling out a jobs package in September that'll be specific on how he's going to do that for our district based on a whole array of things, including particularly alternative energies.
Dave, you want to respond to that?
I think one of the important things to do, if we're really going to, we're talking about not as much about importing with this, as we're talking about creating jobs here in the United States. And when it comes down to that, infrastructure is a key part of that when we're talking about the renewable resources, the green energy, and so forth. And those are the things that we need to start focusing, investing back here in the United States. When it comes down to it, the other thing that we need to do to also spur creation and job development is stop believing that major corporations are the job creators, and stop giving them the tax breaks and the incentives to come in and destroy local community jobs. So when we start rewriting those tax codes, that will promote people being able to open up their own private businesses again and be able to compete with big box stores. So we need to stop targeting things like that. Thank you.
30 seconds, okay. He's begging for 30 seconds.
Yes, this, in my estimation, is largely influenced by TPP and free trade agreements. We need to negotiate fair trade agreements where we are not competing in a manufacturer against people who do not have to meet the same pollution standards, they have to meet slave labor standards, child labor standards, etc. If they're not meeting those standards, they should not be able to import to us at the price they can beat us at. Thank you.
Is there one more question for the federal candidates?
Here. Okay, and mine was this. You must admit that.
Is this a different question?
It's in line of this with jobs. And you must admit that currently, not only is our manufacturing a problem with our jobs and outsourced, but also technology. So what are you gonna do about
Investing in the next generation of workers, what you're saying, in the next generation of America. And that is true. There is technology. When everybody keeps saying that we're going to bring manufacturing back, that is not the whole solution here, folks. We need to start looking at investing in our youth. Start building innovation. American innovation is really where we need to invest our time. So when we look at this, okay, we need retraining, we need apprenticeship programs, we need to not outsource our infrastructure program when that's put into place. These are all things that are going to stimulate our economy, create jobs, okay, and train and set up the next generation for success instead of setting them up for debt.
Sure, I think if Ken was here, he would agree and talk about the importance, and he's done it as a private citizen. He's taken his own money and invested in technology incubators that's turned into very successful businesses hiring people, and he wants to bring that same mentality and the same resources that the government provided that training.
There was a new question.
Okay, we have a little bit more time. I was working on the premise that we would finish at 1 o'clock. Delphine just told me 1:30, so that means I can give a little bit more time for questions. I don't have to press you so much. Okay, right here.
How are you going to convince Congress or House when, how do you plan to convince or how to work with Congress when they're, without being partisan or being a specific candidate to a party? How are you going to work on that, Mr. Perry and Mr. Kohler?
Okay. How are you going to work with Congress to get something achieved since Congress is so not doing well?
Again, I think if Ken was here, he'd say, make sure you elect Ken or Mr. Wells and get Ted Yahoo out of here, because that's the very disruptive factor that we're talking about. I mean, he's fought as much with his own party as he has other parties. This is about an attitude change, and that's what this election is about. And quite frankly, we and others throughout this country are going to decide, are we going to send people, Republican and Democrat alike, up there that can actually talk to one another? And right now, the man that represents District 3 isn't there.
I guess when it comes down to it, this is exactly what I do for a living. Is I talk to people who don't want to sometimes figure out a solution to the problem they're faced with. What you do is you, in all honesty, no matter who the person is that you're speaking with, the first thing you have to do is you got to listen. Okay, because their life experiences and their beliefs are just as valid as mine. Whether I agree with them or not is irrelevant. So what we have right now is people who don't interact and listen to each other. Okay, they talk right past each other. It goes back to what I was saying when I opened. It's about people, not policy. It's about building relationships. It's about walking down the hall, as I use as a great example, and seeing the light on underneath somebody's door at 2 o'clock in the morning, Republican or Democrat, and sitting down and saying, what are you working on? What's it going? Going out and having a lunch with somebody. Maybe getting a new work schedule where you're not only there 3 days a week, or you work 111 days a year. If you do not have a relationship, okay, with your coworkers, and this goes wherever you work, it is very hard to produce a positive result. My goal, getting into Congress, besides other things, is making sure that the people are working together. And I think everybody wants to talk about what committee they're gonna sit on, what laws, what legislation. I want things to work. I got lots of legislation I can talk to you about that I'd love to see happen, but I want it to work. I think we all want it to work.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yes, now, I agree with the things that Dave said, and that works in a normal, sane society, but the society that exists in Congress is now dominated by the need to satisfy the corporate sponsors who they are dependent upon. And until that need vanishes, you will not get honest discussions. People will be talking past each other. So I maintain that a straight era government is essential to resolving problems. Once you get rid of the fog through which we now see problems, the fog of corporate money, then you can have discussions and you'll find out that conservatives really traditionally like good government with existing solutions, proven solutions. Liberals want to try new things and see if you can do a little better. Everything on Hillary's platform, which was Bernie's before that, is a proven solution, will work. We know it will work. We need to do those things, not by incremental means, but by doing them. It will hurt various corporations. I'm okay with that. We've been giving the corporations money. Thank you, Delphine.
Joyce.